us these days, the non-communicable diseases.
Now, to start with, I've heard of a number of diseases, and many could have heard of various forms. Now, when we talk about non-communicable diseases, what are these diseases?
Thank you very much. Once again, non-communicable diseases are diseases that are not easily transferable from one person to another. Mm-hmm. So it means if I have a non-communicable disease, I'm not a risk to you. Mm. Unlike the communicable diseases where we say don't be near each other or what.
The COVID,
even HIV is a communicable disease. So the non-communicable diseases are diseases like diabetes, like hypertension, the heart diseases, kidney diseases, asthma, sickle cell, that you are not going to transfer them to you. And unfortunately, we have put a lot of emphasis on malaria, TB, HIV, which are still killing Ugandans. But then the non-communicable diseases have come up. And if I asked you about several funerals, diabetes, complication of hypertension, kidney diseases. You've had people fundraising for kidney transplants. There will be maybe asthma, cancers. All those are lumped together as non-communicable diseases. And they are now serious. And that's why I welcome every opportunity to come and sensitize Ugandans about these diseases, which are now killing almost 40% of the people who die in our hospitals, in our health facilities, die because of these non-communicable diseases. And more die in their homes that we don't know. Yeah.
Now, you rightly mentioned a few, but what other causes? Because when you talk about hypertension, when you talk about diabetes, when you talk about a number of them, kidney problems, these are diseases that people know, and at least I want to believe 1 in every 20 at least has lost a relative or a friend or a loved one due to these diseases. Well, let's look at the underlying factors, the causes.
Thank you very much. These diseases, some of them know what we call risk factors. Risk factors may not necessarily be the real causes, but it means if you have those risk factors, your chances of getting these diseases is much higher than somebody who doesn't have these risk factors. And unfortunately, these risk factors are common in our environment, and I'm going to mention them. And if you want to avoid at least 50% or more of these non-communicable diseases, avoid these risk factors. One of the risk factors is tobacco.
Smoking.
It's not only smoking, just tobacco. Whether you are smoking, whether you are chewing it, whether you are sniffing it, whether it is second-hand smoke, because you may not smoke, but you like the company of people who smoke.
You're like a passive.
Yeah, passive smoking or second-hand smoking. So tobacco is such a dangerous product that in whatever form you use it, it will affect your health. Tobacco will increase your chances of getting cancer, many cancers. It's not only lung cancer. Many people know about lung cancer, but there is throat cancer. There are many cancers that are associated with tobacco. And I've said any form of tobacco is not safe.
Today, the youth, I hope they are listening. There is shisha smoking.
I hope they are listening.
Which I know shisha is even more dangerous.
Very good.
But today is a Friday. When you go to all these happening places, you're going to find shisha pots everywhere, and the youth are puffing through the nose, through the mouth, through the ears, almost the eyes. Yeah,
so tobacco in whatever form, because we are fighting tobacco, the industry is trying to find innovative ways of luring the youth to smoke, and shisha is one of them. There are other forms of flavored tobacco, electronic cigarettes and all that. So please, tobacco is a dangerous product that we should avoid, and even avoid being near the one who is using it, because you are going to be a passive smoker. So that is one of the risk factors. And I'm going to mention like 5 so that I don't overwhelm you with information. I hope Chirabo will give me another opportunity to come and explain others. The second one, which is so prevalent in Uganda, is alcohol. And Ugandans, we don't win in other areas, but in alcohol we won.
Top in Africa.
Top in Africa, and I think 5th in the world. So alcohol, when consumed in excessive amounts, is a risk factor to these non-communicable diseases, including heart diseases, liver diseases, and others, including diabetes and all that. So alcohol may be good in some way for social reasons and all that, but when you take more than you should take, then it becomes a big issue. And the World Health Organization has guided us. I'm going to give an example of this normal beer, 5%, 4.5%. You are not supposed, a man is not supposed to take more than 2 bottles of 300 mils a day. But trust Ugandans, they take crates. They take, you find somebody is proud that he has taken a whole crate of beer. A lady is not supposed to take more than 1 in a day. And in a week, you are not supposed to drink for more than 5 days. At least you give 2 days for your liver to remove all those toxins.
You take a Friday, you take a Saturday, until next.
Yeah, but trust Ugandans, they drink every day and drink in crates. Saying the alcohol, I've given an example of a beer of 300 mils, 2. Those are 2 units. It means when you are taking wine, the volume is much less. When you are taking whiskey, the volume is much less that you are allowed
because these ones are usually not above 7% alcoholic volume, I think so.
The wines start with 10, 12, then the whiskeys can even go to 40, 50.
I've never seen one of 75.
Oh, you see? So now I've mentioned those 2. The third one is physical inactivity. Being physically inactive. And trust Ugandans, especially in the urban areas, they don't want to be physically active.
Drive to work?
You know, when even they reach the office, they don't even climb the stairs. They go in the lift.
Yes.
Then when they reach in the office, they sit, and their seats, they just stand. And then the secretary will bring the snacks and the tea, and they take, and and in the evening, the same story. Lift down, the driver drives you to home. Sometimes not home, the pub. You first also take another risk factor. Then you
smoke joint, take some.
Then you continue home and sit on the TV with the remote, and that's it. After that, you go to sleep. With that kind of lifestyle, even work awambwa. So physical inactivity is you don't give your blood to go to every place to remove all those toxins and what. So physical inactivity, especially in the urban centers. We are lucky in the villages, they have no choice. In the rural areas, they do physical activity, not by choice. Because of the way of survival, we have found that they are actually very active. Their level of activity is more than even the recommended, which is good. But our problem is what? Is in the urban centers. And now also urban centers have crippled in the villages. You find in the villages there are some trading centers where men go in the morning just to drink and they are not active. So physical inactivity is another risk factor for these non-communicable diseases.
So now we have alcohol, tobacco, physical inactivity.
Oh, you are a very good student. Eh?
Definitely.
Yeah. So I'm going to mention the fourth one. I will mention about 5 or 6 and stop there for the risk factors. The other one is unhealthy diet. Feeding poorly, and now you think you are feeding well when you're actually feeding poorly. So food rich in fat, rich in sugars, rich in salt is not good food for us. And it predisposes us to all those non-communicable diseases I have told you. We have a lot of hypertension because of the salt we consume. We have a lot of heart diseases because of the poor food we eat, these foods with lots of fat. We have issues with foods rich in a lot of carbohydrates, rich in sugar. These sugar-sweetened drinks that we find on the market. Now there are so many, you help them advertise them in your TV. Those sugar-sweetened drinks, including the sodas, they have a lot of sugar. And that is not healthy for our bodies. The only healthy drink I recommend is water.
Mm-hmm.
The only healthy drink I recommend is water.
Now, doctor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have the expert.
Yeah.
Yes.
These drinks, including sodas, including those juices, are not good for our health. And because they have increased, the non-communicable diseases have also increased. You find when you get the time, and I'm sure before I leave here, when you go for commercial break, you'll advertise some of these drinks, unfortunately. And therefore, the non-communicable diseases are increasing. So these drinks are not healthy. The foods we eat most, these fast foods are not healthy for our bodies. The chips and the chicken, the kebabs, the burgers, the what. And unfortunately, the youth now is the food of choice. And now there is an epidemic of roadside foods. I think wherever you go, you find chips fried along the roadside, and chicken and those other foods. And unfortunately, those foods are also some dust in and the fumes in, because they are on the roadside. They are frying them along the roadside. The dust is there.
Just as long as there is fire.
You imagine the dust that is going in that cooking oil. You imagine the fumes that is going in that cooking oil. And then they are frying chips. And even when the oil remains, they keep for the following day and the following day. So no wonder we are having these diseases, especially the cancers on the increase. We are having heart diseases on the increase because of the way we eat. The good food is the food we used to eat. Boiled food, if you can put some little oil, that is fine, but not too much. But with more vegetables, our green vegetables, the dodo, the nakati, the cabbages, and fresh fruits. But what we eat is junk. And unfortunately, it is the one that is readily available and may be tasty, but unfortunately, it's not healthy food.
Well, we are still looking at non-communicable diseases, and this is a problem that is facing our country right now. Now, doctor, let's...
So how many have I mentioned now? Do you remember all of them?
Yes.
I'm not putting you on the spot.
We've talked about tobacco, alcohol, not exercising. We've talked about the food we eat. Yes.
Very good. You're a very good student. And when you recap them, I'm sure our audience also keeps remembering those ones.
Definitely. It is very important. No matters of health, it is easier to prevent something than treating it, because each of these diseases, doctor, and I think the public will agree with me, is very expensive.
Yeah. The
Very
fifth
expensive.
one, environmental pollution.
That I mean, I have no control of it.
Air pollution. There is where we have control. Air pollution. Let me not say environmental, because environmental is so wide. Let me say air pollution. One of the dangerous things that we do in our homes is cooking using firewood in a closed place, and you inhale all that smoke. That smoke goes and affects your lungs. And we have many older people now suffering chronic coughs. The cough that you treat and it doesn't go, because you've been inhaling those smokes. I'm sure there is something that we can do. One, we advocate for cleaner energy, but that may not be, very accessible for everyone. But at least be in an open place, or let your kitchen have good aeration instead of being so stuffy. But if you can, and especially people in our towns, if you can use the gas, you may in the long run it is cheaper. People buy charcoal and use charcoal to heat their food because they don't want to spend money on gas. But in the long time, it becomes cheaper if you use gas. So these fumes we inhale, including burning the bushes and what, those are things we can avoid, because you are damaging the environment and it's not good for your health. We can do something about that. So it's important that you know that it's a risk factor, and in your own way, even now when you go home, you encourage to use gas instead of charcoal or use electricity. But even when you are going to use charcoal, instead of putting it, I hope students are listening to me. I visited some of the hostels, they put their sigiri in the room and they heat. So they smoke, they inhale, and all that is not healthy for them. So try as much as possible to avoid inhaling smoke. You know, that smoke minimize is up to you. Instead of putting a sigiri in the room, put it on the veranda or somewhere far from the room so that the smoke doesn't enter your bedroom and you inhale it. The issue of air pollution by these old vehicles and what you may know, and factories in towns that we shall handle with the planners of the city and the residential areas. But you, in your own capacity, do something to inhale less of those fumes.
Well, I'm still with the doctor here, with whom we are discussing non-communicable diseases. What are these diseases? Well, these are diseases you cannot pass on. Who are at risk? Well, he's just mentioned things you should avoid. The kind of tobacco smoking, look at exercise, your body. Of course, he talked about air pollution. Someone in the village may say for us, but at least try as much as you can to limit that. And also have, I think, enough ventilation. That will help. Now, doctor, all this said, how big is this burden to our country?
Thank you very much.
This is burden.
Before I come to the how big the burden is, there is one last risk factor that I want to mention, and then we go to how big the problem is. The last risk factor is failure to go for medical checkup.
We only go there when we are not feeling fine.
Which
Ugandan walks in a hospital or a clinic and says, now I have the money, check me, I've come for medical checkup. Most we see them as for the Western world.
That's another big risk factor, because these diseases don't have symptoms. Actually, when you get symptoms, you know there are complications of those diseases. You can have your hypertension or high blood pressure, or in Uganda, vagita pressure, and there's nothing happening in you. You can have your diabetes, there is nothing you feel. You can have the cancer, there is nothing you feel. So unless you go for a checkup and they find out, those diseases they are destroying your internal organs, they are destroying your kidneys, they are destroying your liver, they are destroying your heart. By the time you realize, sometimes they even destroy your manhood. Sometimes people with diabetes come complaining that they are no longer doing their manly duties. And when you check, it is because of diabetes. And by that time, it may be difficult to reverse. Yet, if we knew earlier, that is something that can be worked on. So Ugandans, we need to develop a habit, especially those who are 40 and above. We recommend that if you are 40 and above, at least once a year, go to your health, go to your doctor, go to your health worker and say, okay, I'm feeling okay, but can I be checked? Can my health be checked? And simple tests, we not necessarily mean too much, you know.
Putting in machines
no. Simple tests like measuring your blood pressure, checking your blood sugar, weighing you and your height, and they tell you your BMI may make a difference. The diabetes, there is what we call pre-diabetes. It means you have not yet been diabetic, but you are on the journey. That can be reversed. And how do we reverse it? We tell you, exercise more, eat less of the junk foods, and within 2 weeks or whatever, your pre-diabetes is reversed. Instead of continuing to the diabetes, and then the diabetes has so many complications. So for the risk factors, if you can do those, if you can minimize on those, then we are good to go.
Okay, well, we've gone through a number of them, and I'm very sure you're now carrying out some self-examination. How regularly can you visit a doctor, a health worker, to check on your health? But also, when you look at what you eat, what you drink, when you look at the fact, are you doing exercise? When you look at the fact that tobacco must not be part of you, alcohol must not be part of you. If you keenly observe this, then the expert I have says we can reduce the disease burden and the so much inconveniences that sickness comes with. Allow me to go for a very short break. Now, when I return from this break, we'll be looking at how big is the disease burden to our country when we talk about non-communicable diseases. We'll return shortly.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
The stage is a world of entertainment. Get the latest entertainment, lifestyle, events and activities. Chats with celebrities that make headlines.
It's your girl Zari, Mama Tifa. I'm in town, I'm in Uganda.
It's showbiz. Join me, Mary. I intend to connect you to a lot of fun. Cause I know you want it, you love it, you enjoy it. All on Powerful Level Magazine, reloaded for you right here on UBC. Don't miss out every Saturday, 12 p.m.
Amaina gange ninze tusuubira lyaga Margaret. Ndi Munawanyago Tailors Association Sako ey'emyoga. Tuli batunzi ba byalaani. So ife nga Nawanyago Sako twafunako emiliyoni 8 era bagiire nga badiiza mpola mpola ate nga bwe bongera n'okusavingaku era akasente ako katuyambyeku katutoola ku wetwali katwongera ku eidaala okusobola okweyamba n'okwesitula mu maka gaife n'okulabirira famire daife. Era twala omukisa guno okwebaza gavumenti yaife eya Muzeeyi Museveni Yoweri Kaguta Tibwabulwa olw'okutuyamba ife abantu abawansi.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Welcome back from that short break. At least we didn't advertise any of the drinks that Doctor is talking about. Thank you for being with us. It is still Good Morning Uganda Extra. I'm Robert Cheravo, and I have the Assistant Commissioner in charge of Non-Communicable Diseases, Ministry of Health, Dr. Mutunji, with whom we are discussing more of this. Now, Doctor, let's go to the disease burden. How big is this problem?
Thank you very much. The problem is big. And we are not yet at the level of the developed world, but we are slowly going there. As I told you, now about 40% of death in our health facilities is due to non-communicable diseases. Globally, about 76% of death are due to non-communicable diseases, because people in the developed world, they don't die out of these communicable diseases. No malaria, no TB or so. But here we are at 40%. But even 40% is not a small percentage, and we are increasing. We did a study, a community study, to estimate the burden of these risk factors and non-communicable diseases in the society in 2014, and we recently repeated it in 2023. Wow. The results of 2023 have not been released officially, but I'm private to them. But what I can tell you is that the situation is growing from bad to worse.
Oh.
For example, in 2014, 1.4% of adult Ugandans, because the study was about adult Ugandans, had diabetes. 1.4 percentage. Say maybe 2 in every 100 people. Had diabetes. And the biggest problem was over 70% of those who had diabetes didn't know that they have it. So when we did a study in 2023, the percentage has gone to 3.3. So it has doubled, more than doubled. Because if it doubled, 1.4 times 2 is 2.8, but now it is 3.3 of Ugandans, adult Ugandans have diabetes. Are we surprised? No, because we are exercising less, we are eating poorly, we are taking more alcohol, so we are not surprised. So and what are complications of diabetes? You can get blind, you can get impotence, anything can happen because of diabetes. So that's how big the problem is. In less than 10 years, Ugandans who have diabetes have more than doubled. Hypertension is 1 in 4. 1 in 4 adult Ugandans has high hypertension.
Meaning every
high
4
high
Ugandans
pressure.
you see.
One of them has high
them.
blood pressure.
Yes.
That's how big the problem is. And 70% of them don't know that they have high blood pressure.
Problem after problem.
So again, the pressure is there destroying your kidneys, destroying your nerves, destroying, do you know that those sudden deaths that you attribute to witchcraft are actually part of those complications? That your vessels are being blocked because of pressure, and sometimes maybe burst because of too much pressure in the brain. They burst, they cause bleeding in the brain, stroke, and you die in your sleep even, and then you say, this one has been bewitched. That's how big the problem is. Kidney diseases, also very high and going up. So the problem is big, and we are not surprised because we have not done enough to control these diseases. And I hope our small efforts and giving us the opportunity to come and sensitize Ugandans will save a few souls.
Now, Doctor, this brings me to ask, what is government doing? Individually, you've told us what we can do, what we can avoid. But as government at policy level, what is being done?
Thank you. Government is doing what it can. It may not be what we want to do, but we are doing. First of all, at the ministry level now, NCDs are one of our priorities, and they have a fully-fledged department now, which shows that we are moving in the right direction. We have a department, we have policies now. We put a committee for prevention and control of non-communicable diseases. So that, because as you've heard, the risk factors are not in the health sector. Drinking too much maybe is in the trade. Failure to exercise, maybe urban authorities and works, because when they are making roads, they don't give us walkways and what. The food issues is maybe in agriculture. You see?
Where there is food safety, food.
We have said, no, at Ministry of Health, we can't do it all, because these risk factors are outside our sector. For us, we only get the products, the diseases. So we have partnered with those sectors and formed what we call a multi-sector committee for prevention and control of non-communicable diseases. Incidentally, next week we have a meeting of that committee to continuously review what can we do. Ministry of Energy, what can we do to make cleaner energy the affordable option? Ministry of Agriculture, what can we do to make the food, the healthy foods, the available option and the easier option? So we are not seated, but as I'm saying, sometimes government programs take long. At an individual level, for me, I want to emphasize what you as an individual, as a community, at that level, what can you do? At a village level, can you use even an available playground for the school, and you start exercising, even if it means in groups. And I'm happy I've seen some people here, responding to our messages. We have even declared a national day of physical activity. Just to show Ugandans that it is important to exercise. Our head of state has demonstrated, even during COVID, that you can do physical activity in your small environment. So that's what we are doing. At least policies are there. We are working with our Ministry of Education colleagues. You've heard that even some schools are going to be closed if they cannot access a playground. So there are many things the government is doing, but you can't wait for the government.
Now, government is doing something, like you've said, policy level, that is very good, and of course, this merger of various stakeholders. At individual or community, where do they come in? Most so, let's begin with the community. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really, at the community level, support us in avoiding the risk factors. Find your own ways on how you avoid tobacco, how you reduce alcohol intake, how you eat healthy foods with less salt, less sugar, less fat. And how you exercise again, and how you can go for a healthy check, especially if you are 40 and above. That's when these diseases begin, because some of the risk factors for non-communicable diseases that I didn't mention, because I know we don't have much to do about them, is age and genes. Because the more you grow old, the more you become, vulnerable to non-communicable diseases. So I didn't mention it because we can't do much about age. But if you are 40 and above, you need to go for a checkup once a year. Many people drive cars. Do you wait for the car to have cranks and start making noise before you take it for service? They tell you ever after maybe 5,000 kilometers, bring your car for service. And you service your car maybe more than 5 times a year. I'm requesting that your health is much more than the car. Make sure you go for a health check. And at a community level, you can organize that with your nearest health facility to go for check. The minimum, your pressure, your blood sugar, your weight, and your height. And then the doctor will advise you.
So what is the combination between weight and height?
People who, our bones have a certain weight they carry. So the longer bones can carry bigger weight. The shorter bones carry smaller weight. So when we combine height and weight, there's what we call BMI, body mass index. And there's a certain body mass index that when you go beyond that, you are overweight. And when you go above another level, you become obese. And there are many diseases that are associated with that, including diabetes, including hypertension, including heart diseases. So your height determines how much weight you can carry. That's why we say you do your weight, you do your height. The health workers will calculate the body mass index and tell you if your body mass index is above 25, you are overweight. If it's above 30, you are obese, and then you try to reduce. Yeah, that's the connection.
Well, so much that we are learning here regarding non-communicable diseases with Dr. Mutunji, who is the Assistant Commissioner, Non-Communicable Diseases, Ministry of Health. And of course, when he talked about the disease burden of how big this problem is in Uganda, the statistics were very alarming. If I may ask, Doctor, if you are at liberty or have these statistics, let's look at, do we have regional or gender per se when you're looking at this burden?
Yes, we do. And we've not found very important gender differences. Like obesity is more in women, but men also, the problem is a little bit big. Physical inactivity is more in women. And the two are related. If you are not physically active, it means you are likely to be overweight. But the differences are not very, very important. They are not big. That my team is still analyzing data for 2023 on that basis. They have not yet given me the final report. But the differences are there between male and female, but really all of us are at risk. Even when you come to drinking, men drink much more. I have the statistics here. I think men, 40% of men drink, and less than 20% of women drink. But what I'm saying, all of us are at risk. Then when you come to the region, again, my team has not yet given me the final results. But for example, tobacco. We found that tobacco use in the northern region is so high compared to Western region. I think it's 40% in Northern region and less than 10% in Western region and Central region. So the regional variations are there, but why I'm not dwelling on them is that we are all at risk. So if we are having interventions about stopping tobacco, our efforts will be more in the north than maybe in the west, but doesn't mean that the west should relax. We are all at risk. The regional variations are there in those risk factors, and even the disease burden, we are starting seeing those variations. But fellow Ugandans, all of us are at risk, and we need to take the necessary precautions.
Well, we're still looking at non-communicable diseases with Dr. Mutungi, with whom we want to ensure that we reduce the disease burden of non-communicable diseases in our country. The doctors said that, well, it is just increasing instead of reducing. Yet one would think there is more exposure to knowledge and there's that. Now, let's look at the treatment facilities, doctor. Because earlier on, you told people that it's good you go for a regular body checkup. But do we have we enough people who are trained to understand and does any health facility I go to, at least by government, under government structure, do we have personnel that really understand these non-communicable diseases? Have seen many people who believe, like what you said earlier, that this sudden death, Bamorose, sometimes you know, that belief, because as it is before they will begin showing those serious symptoms, someone says, I even went to hospital and the doctor failed. No, now meaning I have to consult this way for those that have that kind of thinking. So how equipped are our health facilities with both human resource and equipment?
Thank you very much for that question. I want to emphasize that prevention is better than cure.
No doubt.
Please, prevention is better than cure. The management of these diseases, treatment of these diseases is very, very expensive. And I've told you that Ugandans come when it is too late. When you go to Uganda Cancer Institute, many people who come and are diagnosed with cancer is already in the late stages, and nothing much can be done. Okay, we try to do. But your question of whether these services are available, yes, they are available at all our government health facilities, depending on the level, of course. If you have kidney failure, you don't expect that one will be managed at your health center too. But screening for hypertension, for obesity, for overweight, for blood sugar can be done at Health Center 3, which is at the sub-county level. Then if they find you with a condition and they are unable to manage it, they will refer you to another level, maybe to Health Center 4 or even a hospital. If, for example, you are in a general hospital, like maybe Kagadi Hospital or wherever, and they find they can't manage you, they will refer you to another level, maybe to a regional referral hospital, like Mbarara Regional Referral Hospital, Fort Portal Regional Referral Hospital. They refer you there. And if the regional referral hospital cannot help you, they will refer you to a national hospital. Murago, where we have Uganda Heart Institute, Uganda Cancer Institute, we even have Makerere Lung Institute. But you have also had where those national referral hospitals cannot handle you, and then they refer you or India or Turkey or wherever. But you have seen all that involves what? Money. And our people don't have money. Many don't have money. Chirabo might have, but many don't have. So really, let's emphasize more on prevention and early detection of these diseases by going for a medical checkup. Because I've had people whom they have referred, the Health Center 3 says, this condition cannot be managed here. You go to hospital. And when he goes back, he says, that he cannot find the problem. That common talk of saying the doctors have looked for the disease and it's not there is a hoax to deceive other people. Because there is no way that you are feeling unwell and the doctors will not find the disease. If they don't, they refer you to another level. If at health center 3 they can't find the problem, they will not say we have checked everything and you don't have any disease, you go and maybe consult Jeja. No. They will say maybe we don't have enough equipment to test you, go to a hospital. And now because you have failed to go to the hospital, you say, Musawa Ngambye, there is nothing wrong with me. He has tried to look for whatever and he can't.
And he can't.
Sometimes it is the limitation at that level. If you went up, you will find the reason. But because you are unable to go to the higher level, you start
bankebedde buli kimu.
buli kimu ne basanga siyina bulwadde, so you start. That is an excuse and it's a common phrase, by the way.
Yes, yes.
But it's common because people don't want to go to a higher level. And sometimes it's not their choice because in the wallet there is nothing to take you further. And even when you go further, they will ask you to do more investigations to find what is wrong with you. So it's that wrong statement that is wrong. It's because you are unable to go to a higher level or you are unable to afford other investigations to find the cause of the disease. So I think I've answered your question. The services are there. To a limited extent, they are there, depending on the level.
Then a quick one, someone said me, thank you so much, retired Captain Chitaka Mayanja from Chiboga, have received your message. I says, thank you so much, doctor, for this. But his concern was that the biggest challenge, many Ugandans cannot go to hospital unless they are sick. We agree with you, and doctor agrees with you, but that is a call for that. Now, when I look at time, we have a few minutes left. What is your parting shot?
Thank you very much. Time runs very fast. So these non-communicable diseases that I have mentioned, and the risk factors and what. The other risk factor is infectious diseases. So the infectious diseases, if they are not treated, can expose you to non-communicable diseases. For example, HIV. If you have HIV, you have more chances of getting non-communicable diseases, including the cancers. So it's important that we prevent the infectious diseases themselves. And where some of these diseases have vaccines, we should go for vaccines. Liver cancer is because somebody has had chronic hepatitis B for long. But chronic hepatitis B has a vaccine, which we should get. But people don't want to go for vaccines, even for their children. Women suffer from cervical cancer. It's one of the commonest cancer here, cancer of the cervix. It is caused by an infectious disease, the virus called HPV, human papilloma virus. There is a vaccine against HPV, which we are giving to our girls of 10 years, so that in the future they don't suffer from cancer of the cervix. But our people are not coming for those vaccinations.
Here the ministry sometimes run these messages, these adverts calling people to go for this vaccination, to take these young girls. I think, is it at
10 years? We have now settled at 10 years.
First it was, I think, 13.
Yeah, now it's 10.
Okay.
But from 9 to 14 years, they can get vaccinated and prevent them from the cancer of the cervix. They are not. So these infectious diseases should be prevented or treated in time, especially in childhood. Secondly, these risk factors start in adolescence. They start in young age. That's when you start smoking, that's when you start drinking, that's when you do what. But the diseases come later in life. So sometimes it's difficult to connect the two because you've been smoking for a long. Why are they saying that now you have this problem? So these diseases come much later, but the risk factors start early in adolescent life. So my parting shot is that health is made at home and only repaired in health facilities. So make health at home. Make health at home by preventing non-communicable diseases. Because when I come next time, maybe I will go disease by disease. Maybe we talk about cancers, and I tell you the commonest cancers in men, the commonest cancers in women, and what causes them. But what causes them is what we have mentioned, including the infections I've mentioned, because I've told you that cancer of the cervix is human papillomavirus, HPV, which can be vaccinated. Liver cancer is by hepatitis B, which can be treated. And now we have our teams going around in the health facilities doing screening for cancer of the cervix, because cancer of the cervix gives us time. You can see that this cervix is likely to develop cancer in the future, and you can treat there and then. So when they tell you, you screen for cancer of the cervix, you should accept, because prevention is better than cure. When you go, Chirabo, if you visit Uganda Cancer Institute and you see how people are suffering with advanced cancer, and yet if it was discovered early, much would have been done to save their lives. So let's be responsible for our lives as we wait for the government to Yambe.
Oh.
Yeah? Avoid tobacco, reduce alcohol intake, eat healthy food with lots of vegetables and fruits, be physically active, avoid air pollution as much as you can, go for health check at least once a year if you are 40 years and above. And that's how we can make health. And take your children for vaccination. The young children before 1 year, but also the girls of 10-year-old, take them for HPV vaccination. And now, if you get an opportunity to check for your hepatitis B status and get vaccinated, take that opportunity, because hepatitis B, when it stays in your blood for long, it will cause you liver cancer, and you have only one liver. Thank you very much.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Dr. Gerard Mutunji, who happens to be the Assistant Commissioner in charge of non-communicable diseases at the Ministry of Health. Thank you so much for your time. And our viewer, thank you so much from 6:30 till now. Well, there's so much good programming that is continuing. See you next week. God willing, have the best of your weekend. Enjoy responsibly. Remember, excess alcohol can make you a potential patient of an uncommunicable disease. Shun tobacco completely. For God and my country, God bless you.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.